I'm what you may call a young Israeli politician. I'm 27 years old, and in Israel it means mainly two things for me. Well, first, my Jewish mom, 3 more years I'll be 30, and every second girl she sees, she tries to set me up with. So, but the other thing is 6 years ago, I finished my 3 years in the Israeli army. And as a combat medic across the northern border with Lebanon, I met a lot of people. But one person probably affected the direction of my life more than others. Nimrod. It all started in the morning, in the 12th of July. I just woke up like a regular day, put on my olive green uniform, brushed my teeth. And while I was brushing my teeth, I heard loud noises coming up for the northern side of our base. And I was thinking to myself, those reserve soldiers, training too early. This is too early. Little did I know, though, that those were the first seconds of war. Those were the first shooting of the Second Lebanon War. Nimrod was probably sleeping at his base, not far away from me. But 30 minutes later, we got the order to drive to the border. I was leading my team of 3 medics, a doctor, to the border, and we were the second team on the spot. On the way, medics were trained to react. So I can see in their eyes, and also I felt, what are we supposed to do now? We ran in our mind that kind of a movie of what we're supposed to do. But when we got there was nothing left to do. There was nothing left to save. All we can see is 2 burning vehicles across our border. And 10 minutes later, we got the order to go back, and I remember seeing a tank going over, running through the north side, and an armed vehicle behind it. Later on, we understood that, first of all, Nimrod was in that armed vehicle, but second was that they were running towards Lebanon to try to get back 2 captured soldiers that were kidnapped in that attack. When I came back to the base, I saw a helicopter making a landing, and as what I do usually, I just come and try to help. And I found myself carrying a stretcher on my shoulder and running with it to the clinic. I thought there was an injured soldier on that stretcher. And when I got into the clinic, I put the stretcher down, and I looked up that stretcher, and that was a dead soldier on that stretcher. And that was the first time in my life I ever saw Nimrod. As medics, we're trained to take care of people. But that day, we sat 3 hours next to him because we had nothing else to do. But during that time, I met Nimrod. We took off his dog tags and find out his name, his birthday. He was a year younger than me. And we met his friends even. And that moment probably affected the next years of my life. Because when you're next to that kind of situation, for me, that's what struck me. This is the end of policy. This is not an A4 paper that you give to someone. This is not an amendment. This is what happens in the end of policy. And for me, I was thinking, I know I have the abilities to lead. All my life, people told me that. But for me, that was the point that I understood. I don't have the ability to lead. I have the responsibility to do so. Because in the end, when people are in those positions and they take the wrong calls, it's life in stake. And that day, and Nimrod's legacy keeps on going with me every day when I don't get to eat or to drink just because I work for my people, my community. When Yitzhak Rabin received his Nobel Peace Prize in 1994, he said, "We will pursue the course of peace with determination and fortitude. We will not let up. We will not give in. Peace will triumph over all its enemies because the alternative is grimmer. And we will prevail." Most of the young Israelis I know, they have this same dream of security, of independence, of freedom, for us Israelis, but for our neighbors in the Middle East. You know, we give 3 years for our country, 3 of our best years. So we know the toll, the conflict with the Palestinians and the conflict we have across the Middle East, the toll it has on our society. And here, by coming to New Story Leadership, I learned also the toll that it takes on the Palestinians, on our neighbors. And some might argue, you know, we're like 10 people. How big is the impact of 10 young people on a conflict that goes on and on and on for decades? To those people, I would say that we might seem like only 10 people, but we are leaders back home. We have proven leadership back home. 13 months ago, I co-established my own local party back in Ashdod, my home city. 2 years ago, I led 2,500 young Israeli activists on the street of our city in the biggest protest since the 1960s against the rising costs of living in Israel. So yes, we might be just 10 here, but there are thousands who stands behind us. In the world of tweets, of posts, of social network, we are the ones who can lead. The tidal wave that we create here in New Story Leadership will resonate in our communities back home. And that's an important thing to understand, that we are more. We are just the front. I will prepare, and one day, my chance will come, said Abraham Lincoln, long before he was president, long before he changed the history of this country. This is what we're here to do. We're preparing, and one day, our chance will come, and we'll be there to change the stories of both of our people. But we need your help. The American people, the American government can take a bigger role in our conflict. We don't want you guys to give up on us. We want you to keep supporting our dream. And it's a dream that sometimes impossible, but it's not. It's possible. Young Irish people, young South African people stood in the same buildings decades ago, and no one thought it was possible. And look at them today. I want you guys to keep on pushing and helping us in our dreams to have, in the end of the day, 2 free and independent states for 2 free and independent people. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you for coming.